Welcome back to part two. I'm here still with Nedum Onuoha. Can Manchester City win the league next year? And if they can, what would be key to achieving that objective?
When you look at the team that they still have, like you lose your captain, but they still have a lot of the players around it. And at the start of last season, I believe, Gundogan wasn't starting every game anyway. I think that's something about history that we forget sometimes. Like you forget how you feel in the moment. So people, see how it ended and assume that's how it started. It's not always the case. But he will be missed, especially for some of those big goals that he scored towards the end of the season. But I absolutely think that they can win it again. And I think the key would be to just have, not a good start, a better start. I thought they were under pressure for long periods last season because Arsenal were doing so well. And City were doing what they were doing. They were churning out results, but they need to find that level of consistency. They also need to make sure that people are in good health like they've managed to have for the last couple of seasons. Like Gundogan said in his Players Tribune piece that he knew they were going to win the league when they were 10 points back, but it was out of City's hands at that point. There was once a point where Arsenal could lose twice to City and still win the title.
True.
So Arsenal dropped off at the worst possible time. They had 50 points in the first half of the season and finished the second half of the season with like 32 or something like that. That's a significant drop-off. If they averaged out for the season, they'll be in a race and so on. But I think the City is just trying to be relentless, trying to be business as usual, understanding that, especially at the start of the season, people are desperate to do well. You know what I mean? Desperate. There'll be 4 or 5 teams that think they can win the league next season, and City are going to be one of them. Well, what they're going to do is going to be different to the others. Well, they have to be consistent like they have been in recent years. They have to be ruthless. They have to make sure that they don't offer anything to the opposition and not fall too far behind if things aren't going too well. Like if the season doesn't go well for the first third, you can't be like 10, 15 points behind because you shouldn't necessarily need perfection to win a league title. You just have to, I guess, just continue to do the things which you've done in recent times, which is just churn out the results, keep people healthy, stay focused, and just keep yourself grounded. And, historically, they definitely have been that. So, of course, they can win it, but so could Arsenal, so could Chelsea. I said Chelsea. So could Liverpool. So could... anything's possible.
Shots fired.
I forgot Man United as well. I've forgotten. I'm sure I've forgotten other teams, but at the start of the season, this is how silly it is. Before a ball's kicked, every team believes they can do better than they did the year before.
True.
Reality is it's not going to be the case. But City, they're the most experienced team in this generation of knowing how to win a Premier League title. So if whatever advantage they have with that, it's a case of maximising it, whether it's a case of the way you recover, the way you travel, or just the way that you play. Just maximise the assets that you have.
Okay. Well, now pre-season is around the corner. Can you talk us through what you feel Pep, his staff and his coaches will be going through in terms of preparations for the next season?
I think this season now is a different focus because in the last season there was the World Cup, wasn't there? So it was almost like splitting the season in two and understanding who was going to be around and who wasn't. And some of that time for City in that middle stage was where 90% of their squad was away playing and you don't know when they're going to come back as opposed to like a normal international break. So I think that played into things. But I guess the focus is just trying to understand again that what they did before is great, but now you have to leave it behind. And that's going to be tough for a lot of them because that's the first time they've ever had to experience that. Like they've won titles in the past. They've won the Champions League. Most of them never felt that feeling of lifting that trophy and saying, we've done it. And I'm sure the motivation will be there to go out and try and do it again. Well, you're back at the bottom of the mountain now. You better climb all the way to the top. I think he'll make sure that there's no complacency in there. I think he's going to try to make sure that the feel from the squad is right, whereby they're quite good at saying to people, if you don't want to be there, they'll try and help you get to somewhere where you want to be. Because it only takes 1 or 2 people not pulling in the same direction for the whole thing to fall apart. So I think you'll get a steer and a feel for who's happy, who's motivated, what people's objectives are for the season. Are you helping or are you taking something away? And then from there, as I say, go back to the same processes that they've been in before. Understand that there's the physical side of things, there's the tactical side of things, but there's the mental side of things as well. Making sure everyone's in the right space to begin this journey that will again take 10 months. Except now as well, the nuance is at the end of the next season is European Championships.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. Want to make sure that this is their best season because come the end of it, they want a chance to lift a European trophy. So, I'm sure they'll be motivated. I'm sure they'll be ready. Obviously, their time away will be different to, say, a team that finished at the start of at the end of May or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But, these guys, Pep's done it 14 years now. And the players themselves, they know that it's once the season starts again, it's business as usual, regardless of whatever came before.
There's been questions about perhaps Pep's commitment. So will he extend or will he leave at the end of his contract? And I mean, we've said that they've won. Gundogan also mentioned something about getting to the pinnacle. During the bus parade, was like, it can't get any, in quotes, better than this.
Yeah.
I mean, except you want to go for the clean sweep of domestic trophies, go for the European Championship as well. I mean, is Pep also, as a man, do you feel he's motivated to continue the same levels of success for City?
I think that's a good question. And the way I perceive it was after they'd won the Champions League, a lot of people were very happy. But we tried to get them to express what happiness felt like, and they weren't really able to do it because it's the thing that they'd never won before, so they didn't know how to be. They know how to celebrate a Premier League, they know how to celebrate an FA Cup, they know how to celebrate a League Cup because they've done it before. They've done it multiple times, luckily for them. But the Champions League is the one which has been discussed the most for Man City across many years. They could win the league, they could win every game in the league season, but if they don't win the Champions League, they would have been criticised because saying something's not right. He's never won it without Messi. Stuff like this, all these conversations. And I think they're a bit unfair, but that's a conversation that could be had. But now you've done it. So what now? Well, for me, the way that I would see it, and when some people question his commitment, I think he's got another 2 years left on his deal. And if he does that, he would have been at the club for 9 years. This is a man that would have been at the club for 9 years if he stays to the end. But he would have only been managing 16. He spent most of his career at Man City already. So it's a weird one to question his commitment. He's at 7 years. I think he had 4 years at Barcelona, 3 years at Bayern Munich. He's had 7 years at Man City. So immediately I say these are uncharted waters for him. But I think the motivation will be different because you've achieved it. You know what it felt like. And you can say, it's not going to be the same. The desire's not going to be the same. It might not be. But I tell you what, when it does feel like the same, if you start losing games, you don't want to be a team that's not involved in a title race. You don't want to be the team that gets knocked out of the FA Cup, out of the League Cup. You don't want to be the team that's bottom of your group in the Champions League because that's a lot of defeats and that's a really negative atmosphere. So very quickly you could think that, it doesn't feel the same. But these guys, the reason they're as successful as they have been is because they're all driven to win. And even though the backstory might change, the moment remains the same. And every time they step out on the field, all they want to do is win, however they can. And if things end up going down the road and they can't win, I'm sure they'll be devastated. And do you know what that'll do? That'll likely inspire them for the next game or the next season anyway. So what I would say is, I think Guardiola will be all right. I think he'll find a way.
I wasn't saying he wasn't. Just
no. I listen. I totally
speculation,
yeah.
though, right?
Yes, I know.
Okay, now let's. The transfer window is really interesting because there are lots of rumors, especially other teams, like you mentioned, about 5 teams will be gunning for perhaps the title or more or less having that top 4 finish. But City are the main team to look forward to now. And you've had one successful transfer. Kovacic is now a City player from Chelsea. Looking around the landscape, who else do you feel will be a perfect addition to this City side?
I think if Man City could take the best player of every team that's a rival, I think that would be good. Just take everyone. You know what I mean? Like, just the way it works. Just take, like, whoever's at Arsenal's the best player, just come this way. Liverpool, come this way. But no, in all seriousness, I think they have a really good squad already. There appear to be 1 or 2 gaps, but then I think there's a danger in thinking that you can directly replace certain players. Because, say, Gundogan is very much Gundogan, and whoever you bring in, I can't think of a player that plays exactly the same way that he does. If Laporte leaves, I can't necessarily think of a player that does exactly what he does. And as well with City, every year they slightly change the way that they play because keeping it the same doesn't bring the same outcome. And the players like Phil Foden, for example, who didn't start in the Champions League final, like he's the golden boy, he's the guy. So you can try and bring someone in, but what does that mean for him? There are people like Riyad Mahrez, who's for years been a fantastic player for City, especially in the Champions League. He didn't play in that final. He's disappointed and he wants to try and get more game time. So you can think about bringing people in, but you need to understand the impact that it has on the squad already.
Nedum, is there anything you're looking forward to, in particular, during City's preseason tour?
I like to see when new signings play.
Okay.
I'm not saying I want new signings to come as such. I'm saying if somebody's been signed, I want to see how they adapt.
Okay.
Like all the players for City, like they sign Alvarez in January, but he plays in July. oh, let's see what this guy's like. Oh, let's see what his link-up's like with this person. Oh, I wonder what Haaland's link-up's going to be like with Kevin De Bruyne. All of a sudden you see it, you start thinking about it, and you start to see it. And once you can see it, you can start to build a sort of expectation level upon it to see what you think they're going to be giving to you. So, yeah, that's what I mean. Like, they can sign whoever they feel they need to sign, and I hope they do. And from when they do sign them, like I've seen Kovacic play loads for Chelsea. I want to see what he looks like now when he's playing for Man City. I want to see who he's going to play alongside and see if it makes you feel good or you see what the potential is going to be for any particular player in any position.
You played or you joined City at the age of 5, the academy at the age of 5, and that you were born.
I was born in Nigeria.
Warri, yeah. Nigeria. Can you say that? Let me hear you say that with a Nigerian accent.
I was actually born in Ovimalaja. Yeah, but I was born there, and I came over to England at 5, but joined the academy at 10.
So the intel was just
is a bit off, but there's good information in there, but just not structured exactly how we want to.
That's fair. I'll talk to the guys.
That's fine. Nobody's in trouble.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. So tell us the journey from Nigeria to Manchester.
So I came over to Manchester, I think, when I was 5 or 6 years old. We lived in a place that's not too far from this current stadium, and for those first 6 or 7 years, we were very much a Nigerian household in Manchester. You know, we were eating all the food from home. We were saying it was too cold even when it was warm. You know, we were overdressing for everything. We were having the full experience. We were connecting basically with people who'd come from Nigeria as well. We basically became family. You know, we weren't having showers. We were having the water in the bucket, you know, that type of thing. That's who we were. That's who we were. And then as time passed, then, you know, I joined the academy and I spent longer in school, started to pick up a slightly different perspective and to sort of gain the understanding of what it was to be in Manchester, to be in England. And as a consequence, then, you know, the two identities part came in, because I sound like this now, but home is still what it was when I first came over, you know, with my mom, my dad, my sisters, and the family that I have all around the world. Like when I'm with someone from Nigeria looks like me and they say home, I know they're talking about Nigeria. They could have lived in Manchester 30 years, but when they say home, they'll say I'm in Manchester, but when they say I'm going home, you know where they're going.
Nigeria.
So that was my side of things. But like I say, I joined the academy when I was 10, I experienced all that. I only got my first British passport when I was 15, 16. So even when I went on pre-season tours and so on, you know the two lines. There's the line where they're all going through, and there's the line where I'm standing there sounding like this. And they're like saying, why are you coming into the country? So, well, it's because I live here. So, you know, I had a different experience to lots of other people, but, you know, that Nigerian heritage is still very much a big part of my life.
Now, very, very quickly, you see you sound a certain way. Can you sound Nigerian? Can you sound like me?
Can I sound like you?
Not generic.
I don't want to disappoint you with my impression of you. But there are times, you know, where like my dad might say, I say, Odima, you know, stuff like that.
Odima, so.
Exactly. So I say what I need to say when the time is right, but I know, and it's so familiar. And to tell you another bit about that. So I'm very well traveled, been all around the world. I've seen people from all different cultures, and people sometimes ask me, what's your favorite like food? And I'm thinking about like Japanese, you know, like Italian, this, American. But every time I have some jollof or some puff puff or some egusi or something like that.
I said puff puff.
Yeah, it's like
puff.
Sorry, puff puff. But every time I have that, it takes me back to when I was younger.
Yeah.
That's all we had. That's what my mum was making, and it's my favorite food in the whole world. So even though I don't have it as much as I used to since my mum's passed, that is who I am, and I can never escape that.
Awesome. Let's talk about Nigerian music now.
Okay.
Do you have any favorite artists, or what genre of Nigerian music do you listen to? There are quite a few of us.
Yeah, there's a lot. I don't know if this makes me less cool or whatever, but it's more so I'd say commercial, but not really commercial. Like when I'm driving my 3 kids to school, you know, there's a bit of Ipe Meal, you know, from Davido. Or there's some Ashake that I'm playing as well. And then to be at the Champions League final, seeing Burna Boy on the field, like what's happened here?
True.
You know what I mean? So it's become commercial, but there's still always some songs on, especially on the new albums from Davido and Ashake, where it's like, this wouldn't play on the radio, but this is who I am. You know, I like things with a certain rhythm to it. So unfortunately, it might sound really basic, I'm loosely into sort of like that Amapiano type sound.
And that's more South African.
Yeah, but being done by people from the West as well. But yeah, I think the Ashake album and the Davido album, they're the two which I'm pushing the most at this moment. But I have a playlist, and as soon as I run that in the house, we know it's party time.
Well, I can't wait to join you in that party. It's a Nigerian party.
It's a good time.
Yeah,
It's a good time. It's a very good
It's
time.
a Nigerian party. Let's get back to football, and let's talk about because you just mentioned being a young Nigerian, and if I'm going to just imagine my guess, you were in Nigeria when you had the likes of Okocha, Kanu, Finit George, all in their prime playing for the Super Eagles at the time.
Yeah.
But let's talk about your favorite African player of all time. Because during that era, you had the likes of George where, the list was endless and so on and so forth.
To talk about a favorite it's not that it's tough, but I remember the impact that JJ had, especially when he came to England. I remember the impact that Kanu had as well. And it was like, you could be talking about during my era, playing against Drogba, Michael Essien, my goodness, Salomon Kalous, the Yaya Toure, Kolo Toure. George Weah, as you mentioned, like he played for Man City. I think I was a ball boy when he was at Man City. But the one that's closest to my heart was probably JJ. Because he was so... it's JJ or Kanu. But I'd say JJ. Kanu was magnificent for Arsenal. Like the stuff he did, incredible plays, history. I think he was at Ajax as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
But I would say JJ because he was doing things and he brought a level of flair which the Premier League didn't have at that time. And the way he saw the game, his elegance, his brilliance. I think he was at PSG before Ronaldinho went to PSG. Like he was an incredible talent, and I've had a chance to meet him because he, was family friends with someone close to me in Bolton. So I would say, I remember like defending. I remember seeing Treble West as well. These are people that really matter.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, I'm going to be biased. I know we were talking about the whole continent, but I'm going to say JJ. Keep it really close to home. Some of them live literally 20 minutes where I live in Manchester, so I'll say JJ because he was special, and people still talk about him now, even though when he was in England, he was playing for Bolton, who at the time was not a fashionable football club. But his skill, his talent, his vision, the stuff he was doing, the stuff he saw, it's the type of stuff which as a young kid you wanted to try and do. So those types of people are the ones who have the biggest impact for me.
Oh, that's cool. Now for this next question, Nedum, there's a rule. You have to sound Nigerian.
Wahala.
Yeah, there you go. That's
Wahala.
one. That's one of it. But let's talk about. I know you mentioned it briefly, but let's dive into it right now. Let's talk about your favorite dish, Nigerian dish or African dish, if you want to use that term. Tell us your favorite. And I know you mentioned your mom.
Yeah,
that's like a special connection. But who else? Maybe not just only her, but who else has made your favorite dish?
Basically,
taste.
Every Nigerian woman that's older than me has cooked something for me. Whether it's the way they cook dodo.
We said Nigerian accent. Dodo.
Then it's obviously like things like jollof rice as well, but shaki, moi moi.
Wow, you just ruined them out.
Yeah,
awesome.
I don't know if you can tell, but I love food.
I can tell.
Zofra soup as well. Even as I'm thinking about it now, I'm getting hungry, And talk about just eating too much. Suya, just the works, everything. And I'll tell you what I love now, and this is something I shouldn't love, like chin chin as well. It's too much.
Nedum, are you sure? Do you have like a doppelganger that's been here and you've been in Nigeria? Because these are like staple Nigerian meals.
That's where as soon as you only need to sometimes talk about the foods that you like to really express where you're from. Because most people might not have heard of those, but for once you've tasted it, you know exactly what time it is. Yeah, so they're the big things for me.
Okay, now Nedum, do you have any future plans to come back home, like you mentioned, come back to Nigeria? And if you will, would love to have you in our studios, SportyTV studios in Nigeria.
If that's an official offer, then yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
How about this? Next 2024.
That's next year.
I'm going to come to your studios. I want to come back. The thing for me, so I came over to England in the early 90s, And my sisters have been back, my mother was back, my father's been back, all my extended family have been back, but I've never been back. And it's because when they used to go back was in July, which is when the football season would be going. And if I'm to go back, I want to go back with my father. I want to go back with my cousin Uni. I need to get the timing right. Since I'm retired now, time was good. I wanted to go 18 months ago with the pandemic, couldn't really go. But I'm ready to go back. I'm ready to see a place where it's more familiar, even though I haven't been there for a long time. And, I talk about home. It'd be good to be home and see home and see a lot of family and do a lot of things, yeah.
Now, Nedum, I know you've not heard this in a very long time, especially from maybe here in England, but I'm going to say your name in Igbo.
Okay.
Mazi Nedum Onuoha.
Mazi Nedum Onuoha.
That's Mr.
Yeah, it's not bad. I think I recognize myself. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. You've been amazing.
Absolute pleasure, sir. Great to see you.